All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Office Hours Special Patreon Edition for July 2024, where we answer questions, give philosophical perspectives, formulate and explore arguments, and deep dive into particular topics of your choice if you are a patron. So we only have one question for August, which is great, but it's a doozy, and it's not one I have a tremendous amount of background and depth of experience in, um, although it is a tremendous subject within philosophy. So Strider asks, what is the purpose of art? Now, I know what you're all thinking. The obvious answer is, of course, money laundering. Art is subjective. The value of art is subjective. Therefore, you can charge however much you want for it, and you can launder money. Now, of course, sure, that's not what you're actually thinking. Although that is a function of art, arguably, some say today. Um, but joking aside, uh, it's I will say it's not something I have a strong opinion on yet. I'm sure I will one day. Um, but I think to answer this question, so much of philosophy is about uh, bringing to the surface possible answers and ways to explore questions and asking the right questions. And so, what I want to do is to frame the question in a way that eliminates a lot of answers off the bat and then bring up a few possibilities as things for you to explore and think about. And I'll share my own sort of intuitive opinion at the end too, but you should take that with a grain of salt. Um, so to start with, art is one of these things that is a human universal. It appears in every culture. Now, obviously, there are culturally specific modes of art. Not every culture does sculpture in the same way. Not every culture does the same styles of painting or body decoration or uh, poetry. Art, in many ways, art is almost a dangerous category in its own right because it is so broad. It covers so much. I was in a debate with a very nice Christian gentleman a few last week, and at one point I asked him, because we were talking about um, aesthetic realism, kind of. We're in a kind of a Euthyphro question, and I asked him what were the commonalities between um, the statue of David and Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. They're both works of art, but the standards that make Michelangelo's sculpture and Tchaikovsky's orchestral arrangements good are very different. The qualities that make good marble sculpture great are different than the qualities that make music great. And so, like, art is a very broad category, and it can be hard to kind of nail down. And maybe it's a bad word. Maybe it's an unhelpful word. That's a possibility. But it is also a kind of we know it when we see it phenomenon. We know intuitively. I guess we intuit. Maybe we don't know this, but we intuit that there is something similar in the spirit that would drive someone to write an orchestral arrangement that would also motivate someone to sculpt a statue of an ideal human form. Like those things, the motive behind that activity is similar in some way, and it is not similar to the motive that would drive someone to, um, you know, catch and then sell fish for money. It's a different kind of activity, and those two things, the sculpting and the music, are similar to each other in some way. What is that? So, the universality of the motivation for art should take some things off the table. what is universal among humans? What is not culturally specific? Because what is universal, and that's its own broad category of things, but what is universal about the human psychology, about human society, about the human experience, that's where we're going to find the purpose of art. If art is universal, we're not going to find the true purpose of art, the origin of art, assuming it has only one purpose, which is its own assumption we should maybe think about. But like an original purpose, we can say. It's going to be in the cultural, in the universal, I mean, not in the culturally specific domains and ends. So, within the domain of human universals, I can think offhand of three possibilities that might give us a purpose, an original purpose of art. Possibility number one is communication. Art is a way of conveying meaning to others very broadly, and either prior to or in the absence of language. This could be illustrating dangers. It could be conveying values. It could be solidifying and conceptualizing identity. It could be for the advancement of propaganda. To say their team bad, our team good. Or it could just be simple reminders of important things to remember. And anything else one might wish to communicate in a broad manner where one doesn't have access to immediately useful language. For example, if you're trying to communicate something to a foe, or to great-grandchildren who might not speak the same language, or maybe you don't. You want something that feels different than how language feels. Now, of course, this wouldn't explain the art of poetry. But poetry is not like regular communication. No. It's doing something else, and it comes from the same place as someone who is painting an exotic deer on the wall of a cave, in terms of the human motivation to do this thing. So, anyways, that's possibility one. We'll call it the functionalist hypothesis, because the art is performing some function, some use. Possibility number two is that art, the purpose of art is worship. It's an expression of veneration for an object of power or beauty, or both, as the case may be. You're just so overcome with awe and wonder at something, whether that's a landscape, or a beautiful animal, or a flower, or a person, or an idea, that you have to express this. You have to share this with other people. You have to bring other people into this experience, and words are not sufficient for that. Not ordinary words, anyways. You can't just describe it. You have to describe it poetically. You have to paint a picture of it to convey it, and as they say, good paintings capture something that even photographs can't quite capture, in our focus, in the sense of perception, that what we're drawn to in an object, because a photograph, of course, just covers everything exactly the same way. Usually, there are tricks photographers will use to make their photographs artistic and not just evidence. So worship would express veneration for these objects of power or beauty, and it also offers the artist an opportunity to participate in the mythic identity of the tribe, of the hero cult, or of the object of veneration itself. Here's my chance to come into some kind of relationship, a deeper degree of relationship with this thing or with other people by bringing this beauty to them. So possibility number 2 is worship, and we could call that the sort of religious explanation. So we have a functionalist explanation, we have a religious explanation. Then there's possibility number 3. Possibility number 3 is that art is a sexual show. It is what the pickup artists would call a demonstration of higher value, or DHV, if I'm remembering the language correctly. It's been a while. But basically, it would be a human diversification of the mating dance that we see among many animals, who are performing all kinds of superfluous movement, superfluous action. Everything about these mating dances and about art itself is superfluous. Indeed, you could make an argument that any sign, any image, any expression that serves some purpose, that serves some function, isn't real art. It's not pure art. That's something else. If you put a little bit extra on your image, if you have a simple deer crossing sign with an image of a deer and deer X-ing and a big yellow diamond on the side of the road, that's a functional sign. That's not art. That's just communication. Now, if you made a carved wooden sign, hand chiseled, and you painted it yellow, and there was a carved deer in the middle with actual like facial features, and you could see the musculature, and still in the iconic deer crossing pose, and it still has the words deer crossing, but it's all hand carved and painted and stuff. That is still functional, but there's a little bit extra that's been worked into the sign, and that little bit extra is where the art is. So, the sexual show argument, or possibility, I should say, is that, art shows the rest of society that the artist is bringing a little bit extra to the table genetically. They've got something in their brain that gets that they can capture form. They can convey something to other people. They can capture the minds and the emotions of other people with this extra skill that they can run and they can fish and they can do all this other stuff, but they can also play music really well. That's a little bit extra that makes people attracted to you. And the thing to think about, and we can call this the genetic possibility. So we've got a functionalist view of art where it's about communication, of a religious view of art where it's about worship. It's about conveying your feelings and connecting the thing. And then there's the sexual or the genetic possibility. Now, it is worth thinking about, like, what are the implications of all three of these? And perhaps there are more possibilities too worth considering. One that has been a subject of discussion in many circles, as well as I've had a conversation with Jack Donovan about AI and the use of art, is what do these different explanations say about certain new things going on in art? So, if you assume that possibility 1 is correct, that art is primarily about communication, how would that affect how we feel about AI art? And if it's possibility 3 is correct, if it's really about this sexual show, this demonstration of higher value, how would that affect our feelings about AI art? And you can fill in the gaps AI art with other sort of edge cases, other things that push the boundaries of what is art. Is an old question is, and a particularly legally important and interesting one, is pornography art? Are protections of art do legal protections for art and like the First Amendment, do those also apply to pornography? Because there are many similarities between pornography and art. However, we experience them a little bit different. They seem to be, as with the guy painting the deer on the cave versus the guy catching fish, they seem to be coming from a different place. They have a different purpose. And so the purpose does seem to be the right question. And my own feeling, because I tend to, and again, I don't have a strong opinion on this. I think communication is wrong. I can't justify that very strongly, but I think communication is wrong. I am torn between whether it is more worship or more a sexual show, whether it's more religious or more genetic. It might be a little bit of both. Who knows? But I know that AI art has no value to me because it doesn't show me anything about the artist. And this is actually technically not true, because the person who generated the AI art doubtless created a prompt and generated dozens, if not hundreds, of iterations of artwork from that prompt, and then hand chose the one that he thought was best, or and possibly modified it a little bit themselves to, make it exactly what they're trying to do. And that's showing something, but we don't, the viewer does not experience AI art as a creation of the artist in the way that they would if, the artist had painted it themselves with a brush, or sculpted it out of marble with a chisel, or played that song on an instrument themselves. So it's a violin or a guitar or drums or something. If you just have the computer say, play these notes at this pace, blah, 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 it's a different experience from the viewer's perspective. On the other hand, if the primary purpose of art was worship, was veneration of a higher object of beauty or power, then who makes the art kind of doesn't matter as much, does it? And I think what has been interesting is you see a lot of AI art in well, I haven't been following the AI art world as closely as I maybe could be. Because AI, the subjects of AI development have changed. I actually received a very interesting email. Someone who had fed a book and an essay of mine through an AI program and had it summarized. And AI usually sucks at summarizing, but this one did a very, very good job at summarizing these books. So where AI is going is always changing. But I will say, like, if the primary purpose of art were religious, were veneration and worship of power and beauty, then we would perhaps experience something like AI art differently than we would if it was a primarily a DHV, this genetic purpose. And that's one of the reasons I kind of tend to think that the purpose of art is more genetic and less religious, although it of course takes on many purposes as it has developed with humanity over the millennia. So I apologize for not giving a conclusive answer. Kind of. I kind of apologize. I think it is good to give inconclusive answers sometimes in philosophy. But I do think it's good to think about it and explore, and I would feel even worse if I gave a conclusive answer to something that I don't have a particularly deeply thought through opinion about. But nonetheless, I think I can provide some possibilities and some possibilities to ponder in our exploration of art, and I'm sure I'll have a lot more to say about it in a few years. So anyways, thanks so much for the fantastic question, and thank you the rest of you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed and have a little bit extra to think about. Take care.